going live right now? Okay. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. We're live here on Facebook. I'm joined today by Adam Robbings of Reuben's Brews. Perhaps you've heard of them. They're a little brewery of some renown in Ballard, Washington, in the lovely burg of Ballard, where there are at least 12 breweries within, I don't know, a square mile or something stupid like that. And
Yeah.
Reuben's is probably one of the most popular and one of the most award-winning breweries, and certainly one of the most popular here in Seattle. So thank you for joining me today, Adam.
Thanks for having
And
me.
cheers.
Cheers. Cheers.
What are you drinking? Oh, you're drinking a summer IPA?
Yeah, I just got this off the line as I came over, so it's just a few hours old.
Nice. Well,
Mhm.
I'm drinking one of these.
Oh, cool. Wembley.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I checked and it was canned on the 15th. So I'm feeling
not
pretty
too
lucky
bad.
and it seems pretty fresh to me. Tastes awfully
Good.
good, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Now, Wembley's one that you guys have made before.
Yep.
And this is just this year's version of it, or you don't do it year round, do you?
We might do. We're trying to dial that recipe in. It's West Coast IPA, but like heavily hopped. So it's more like a West Coast IPA sort of hop load, but in more like an East Coast IPA hop load in a West Coast IPA. That's kind of where we're at with that one.
But it's not hazy, which I want to
Yeah,
compliment
exactly.
you on because I do get a
Yeah,
little bit. I love all types of beer and I love all types of IPAs, but one that's not hazy to me is just like it's so odd anymore. And it's got all the hop character. It's not quite as juicy as I would expect a hazy IPA to be, but I get a little bit sick of the juiciness, you know. This
yeah.
one's got a really nice bitterness to it and some really good hop character.
It's kind of like we're trying to make it like a new take on the old West Coast style, right? So a little bit more juicy than and not quite as bitter as some of the older West Coast. No caramel malt in it, so
Yeah.
just balanced by ABV and mouthfeel. You know, similar to like hazies, but not using a hazy strain, right? So using
Yeah,
it to
well, in short, I think it's a bloody fantastic beer.
cheers. I actually lived in Wembley for a period of time. So
You went to
Wembley,
school there, right?
no, I went to school a little bit further north, but when I started work after university, I lived in Wembley for a year, and Wembley is where the national stadium of England is based. So on that can, the bottom half is like the grass of a soccer field,
Right.
and then the top is actually based off of if you see the or you know or do any googling of the actual stadium itself. It's got this big arch, and we took the arch and then wrapped that sort of metal framework around the top of the can. So it's just a nod to the home of English football, really, because I'm biased. Yeah.
Well, this is just one of the IPAs you guys have come out, one of the beers you guys have come out with, or at least released recently.
Yeah.
So let's talk. I mean, first of all, I want to back up a little bit. Let's talk about Reuben's Brews. For the people who don't know, Reuben's Brews. Adam, you're the one who founded it. How do you describe yourself? An owner, a brewmaster, or what's your official title?
Yeah. I say co-founder with Grace. Yeah.
Co-founder with Grace and
Yeah.
with your son, right? With Reuben.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of. He's part of the reason. Hey.
Well, he's certainly part of the backstory.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There was what his first birthday that that Grace decided to buy you a homebrew kit.
Yeah, it's about that. It's about when he was just born, actually, that first Christmas. My
Oh,
first birthday after he was born. Yeah, I got me a homebrew kit, and then within 6 months, I'd upgraded that system 3 times, and got the bug officially.
yeah, and then you won a pretty impressive award at the
Yeah,
Taste
so
Taste of Winter Beer or whatever they call it. Why can't I think of the name?
yeah. So we I got the bug, and then we saw that you could actually pour as homebrewers at the Finney Beer Taste in the summer. So we applied to do it in the winter, and you had to go in front of the beer committee. So it's pretty not a bad job, is it, being on the beer committee, you know? and So I never forget like going up and going through some of our beers, and we got approved, and us and one other home brewer were actually pouring there, and funny enough, the other home brewer is commercial now as well, Populux. That was Pete and Amy. So
Yeah.
and yeah, it was really good. We got some nice press. I got people asking us for our beers, and Grace and I thought, well, we could just do this every 6 months. This will be fun. But they had to cancel homebrewers because it was like on the edge of legality with the LCB. So that plan was sort of curtailed. So then I went to brew school at Davis, carried on home brewing.
University of California at Davis, where they
Yeah.
have one of the premier brewing schools, university level brewing schools in America. Continue.
Yeah. And then, just carried on learning, carried on doing competitions. I wanted to get the independent feedback on competitions, right? So if you give your friends some beers, they're your friends, so they're biased, and it's free beer, so they're biased. So the feedback isn't normally that unbiased. So that's why I was concentrating on that. And then we found a little warehouse that we could walk to near our neighborhood, and the rest is history, really.
And it's a pretty spectacular history. I mean, you guys are a really good example of a home brewing business, home brewing garage operation that grew into a real business, but it's still a family business. It's named. Reuben is your son.
Yep.
Your wife is the co-founder, and your brother-in-law and the rest of your family is deeply involved in the business, right?
Yeah. So my Grace works full time in the business. Mike is a production manager.
And he's your brother-in-law, right?
My brother-in-law, yeah. My sister-in-law, so Grace's sister, she works full time. She's in like finance office side. Two of our first customers on the first day we're ever open, they're a married couple. They both work for us as well for many years. So it's a family in more ways than one.
Yeah. Well, that's great. So I'm drinking the Wembley, and that's just one of the beers, like I say, that I've come across recently that you guys have introduced to the world. Oh, I should say that you have released, but you've done some other stuff recently too. For instance, the one I want to talk about in particular right now is the "You Are Not Alone," because the world is upside down right now and things are weird. People are strange, times are weird, whatever you want to say. But you guys made a beer called "You Are Not Alone," and there's a charity, there's a benevolence to this beer. And tell us how you came up with that idea. And I've got another question for you, a more specific question for you in a moment. But tell us how you came up with that idea of coming up with a beer for that.
So when March 16th hit and all bars and restaurants closed, breweries were deemed essential businesses, so we were still able to be open. But overnight, we lost half of our business effectively by losing all of the bar and restaurant business, as well as our own tap rooms. But we were half full, right? The glass was half full with us. It wasn't that we were half closed; it was we were half open. I'm trying to keep away from my Britishness and the negativity. So we're half full, and we wanted to do something. As this thing progressed, unemployment was growing, and it was particularly bad in the hospitality industry. So we want to do something to try and support our friends in the industry. Our customers, they're our customers too, right? Before all this happened. And so what we thought about doing, and normally this process of doing a beer takes about two months in terms of ideation to actually release. We had to reduce that down just to 4 weeks just to be able to produce something that we could give back quickly. So we came up with this beer concept that we would release this beer called You Are Not Alone. We'll donate all profits of that to Big Table. So it's the city of Seattle's supported organization to support hospitality workers in the region. And we also put out a call to our friends, and we got 11 other breweries brewing their versions of You Are Not Alone. We gave them the label design so that they could get a head start on that timeline, right, to get things done. And they did the same thing and donated to their local charities throughout the state. In fact, we brewed one batch that sold out really quickly, so we brewed another batch, and that sold out pretty quickly as well. So
now that leads us into something. I mean, it's great. I mean, of the breweries that I know who participated, I'll try not to. I can almost do it alphabetically, but we'll go Balebreaker, Black Raven, Chainline, Crucible, Postdoc. What other breweries have gotten involved? How many more can you name off the top of your head?
That's going to be tough.
The Good Society. Actually, I should get that. I've got a crowler of the beer of the Good Society Brewing Company. It's, Good Society Brewery and Public House here in West Seattle. I picked up a couple crowlers of their beer the other day.
So shout out to the Good Society, actually, because this was a concept that we were coming up with, and they reached out to me to say, hey, is there something we can do in a broader sense to support our community right now at this time? And so they were part of the ideation stage of how to make this bigger than it was just us brewing one beer,
Yeah, they've not to deviate from the conversation too much. We are talking to Adam Robbings from Reuben's Brews, of course, but the Good Society, man, talk about these are some guys that have a really, really good concept for a brewery in terms of it wanting to give back to their community, and that's kind of like their ethos is all about starting a brewery so they can embrace their community. And less than a month after they finally get open. Yeah. Less than a month, it all gets shut down. So, shout out to them. They're really nice guys, and they've got a really great concept. You go in there and you buy a pint of beer, and basically when you start your tab, you tell them which of two particular charities. At least this is the way it was for 30 days before they got shut down. You go in there and they have two charities, and you choose which of the two charities you're going to donate a portion of the sales to. So it gives you as a consumer a way to have some say about what's happening with the money that they're giving back to the community. It's a great concept, really super neat guys, and it's only about 2 miles away from my house, so that's kind of a bonus too. And I was so happy when they opened and they made good beer. I always worry about that when a brewery opens in your neighborhood and you get excited because there's going to be a new brewery opening in your neighborhood. You're like, oh God, please, 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 please. And they open and the beer is good. It's like, oh, thank God. Because you're probably going to drink there anyway, right? So,
yeah,
anyway, let me show you. This is their cool. This is a crowler of the Good Societies.
Nice.
And that's kind of leads to what I want to talk about with this beer. It's a great beer, great concept, great cause. And I know that at Balebreaker, when they decided to brew the beer, they wanted to make sure that it had an aspect that benefited their local community. Big Table is a Seattle-based organization. So they found a way to work with local community organizations over there that do basically the same kind of work and benefit the same beverage and service hospitality industry people that Big Table does. So they were able to expand it, and I understand that's kind of become the whole thing now. Is like it doesn't have to be just about supporting Big Table. It's about supporting your local organization that supports those kind of people.
Yeah.
So the question I have for you is, what's with the label? I mean, it looks an awful like. Who came up with that design?
Well, there's a certain aperitif that is well digested, maybe in the hospitality industry, and we can't do that right now, right? So we wanted to give a nod to that, a subtle nod to that. But just going to the beer again, one really fun part of it was I scaled the recipe for a homebrew 5-gallon size, and that was kind of fun to do because I hadn't done that for a long time. But the idea of that was that there's lots of people who are staying home, say safe orders, who were homebrewing, right? Because there's got to find stuff to do in your day. Oh, there's another can being cracked there. So when I scaled that recipe, I put it out there, but one of the hops was kind of hard to get for homebrewers, so I gave some to our local homebrew club, North Seattle Homebrewers, and who I was a member of in the past, and then at least 2 dozen brewers have brewed their own homebrew versions, and I'm seeing now some people comparing different like salt amounts for their different batches, and it's kind of nice, to come around to that.
So you designed a recipe, and how much of your original recipe is what's being handed down to the other breweries?
Oh, so I put out the actual. So this is more about a concept, right? It's about breweries doing good for the community or doing our little bit that we can. And so we weren't going to dictate this is the recipe. I put out a homebrew version that could be scaled if people wanted to. Um, and we weren't going to dictate the specific charity that people had to donate to. It's more about let's brew something under this banner. Normally, the label process is really expensive and time consuming, so you can use our label, but let's all try and just do something, our little piece, right?
Have you heard anything from Underberg?
No, no, no.
No cease and desist from Underberg yet. For those who don't recognize the label, it is very similar to the Underberg label, which is that little aperitif that you can get at bars because it helps you burp and make room for more beer. Say what you want about it, but that's really what its purpose is. So the point, Adam, is to make money for these causes. Do you have any idea how much money has been raised so far?
So I don't know how much the other breweries have donated. I don't know. I gave the homebrew club some hops, and I just asked that they donate to Big Table if they're going to use some of them. So I don't know how much that was as well. So it's not a complete number, but we signed a check for $28,500 for Big
Ooh,
Table. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
awesome.
So it's a little thing, but it's a little thing that we can do to try and help people, right?
Look, that's not a little thing. I'm just going to tell you, that's not a little thing. There's a lot of people out there who, right now, especially people in that industry, to whom $28,000 is a lot of money. So
Well,
thank you
it's a
very much for giving back to the community that way.
oh,
Cheers.
it's cheers. It's really cheers to everybody who bought it, right? That's really who enabled us to do this. So, that's all I can say. The That's in the past now. So what are we doing going forward? Well, we used to do a Thank You Thursday program every Thursday.
Yeah,
So, but
you did
obviously
that.
that
You did that today.
so we started that off again today in more of a virtual world, right? So
Yeah.
we're gonna speak to the organization every week on Instagram Live, and we're gonna donate not just from pints in the tap room, but from 6 packs and 4 packs to go. Because how long is this going to continue for, right? In some form or other, until there's a vaccine, we're going to be under some sort of social distancing constraint.
Oh, I don't
So
know. I was told that it was all going to be over by Memorial Day, so we don't got that much longer to go.
yeah,
What?
I know.
What?
But
Oh,
if we're being realistic, I don't
if we're being realistic, cheers.
know. But on far more fun things, like one thing that we're known for is breadth of our beers, right? So we talked about all of these different beers, talked about Wembley, how many times we brewed that. We talked about
Right.
You Are Not Alone. Well, before we got on this call, I wanted to see how many beers have we released since March 16th, right?
Oh God.
Because yeah, because that's a big thing about us doing lots of different beers and keeping something new and trying to learn ourselves. Well, we've released 38 different beers since March 16th. It's kind of crazy. And in about 10 days, we'll be at over 100 for the year. So I think cheers to that, I think.
Yeah, cheers for sure. Cheers to that. And I for one, I know a lot of beer drinkers out there want to thank you for that, because this has been an interesting time. We, in these troubled times, we sometimes want to fall back on the familiar. And if you're going to go to the grocery store, you kind of just want to pick up, I mean, like mayonnaise. Putting mayonnaise in a can, it's like, do you realize how much comfort that brings to people? People who that's their beer of choice. And you go to the store and there's like these beers you never had before, and you're going to take a 6-pack home and you want to enjoy it. So it's really easy to lean back on the things that you know and that you're familiar with. It's kind of the COVID experience has kind of created a little bit of a might anyway create a little bit of a boom time for the legacy beers and the legacy brands, but well, that remains to be seen. But we do know for certain that serious beer geeks like us, we're always looking for something new, for something different. We're always looking to explore. We're beer explorers, and the way things have been lately, it's been tough because breweries are doing all they can just to pump out their regular mainline same old stuff. But you have done a fantastic job of continuing to push out new stuff and continue to push out new releases, and I appreciate it because it gives me as a writer, as the one who curates the blog, an opportunity to write about something other than just it's all doom and gloom, everything's so horrible. The Brewers Association says that 79% of all the breweries in the country can't last another day. The world's coming to an end. And finally, just so anything you do that gives me something positive to write about, everybody out there, I'm all about it. Just give me positive stuff to write about, and I'm here for you. But anyway, so thank you for coming out with so many beers. And how many beers did you? There was a stat that you had that was how many beers you made in 2019.
Yeah, 170.
170.
Yeah.
170.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of strength in diversity. We really don't want to get just locked into these our flagships. Like, let's take Hazelicious. Hazelicious as a beer concept didn't come from us just one day saying, "Oh, we need a hazy IPA in our year-round beers." It came from small test batches that we did every day, every week or every 2 weeks, and that's where we learn as brewers. That's where we've got some fun ones coming up actually as well.
Well, before we get to the fun ones coming up,
yeah.
Well, maybe we should just move on to that. It's
we have 2 questions about what's behind him right now.
We have 2 questions for you coming in from Facebook land about what's behind you right now.
Is that like a pantomime joke? Is it?
Well, they're barrels, obviously. But
who's behind you?
And there's also a big fooder right there.
Yeah. So
when did you guys get the fooder moved in?
We've had these a number of years. Yeah, a while now. Yeah. So I struggle to find places to do chats on Instagram and stuff. So I go to one building, somebody comes in, or some machine turns on and it's super loud. And this one I found is pretty good, but it's not guaranteed. This is our sour warehouse. So this is our sour facility. So these are 30-barrel footers. One's got a Belgian blonde in, and one's got a Saison base. They both have our house sort of mixed culture Brett blend that we actually pulled from 2 puncheons that I've got sitting next to me right here. We have about 200 or 300, I think it's 200 and a bit wine barrels, and most of them are actually full of spontaneous. So we have a cool ship, which if I could spin it around, I could show you the cool ship that we've done our 3rd year of spontaneous fermentation. So from next year, we'll be able to pull out 3-year blends of spontaneous beer. So which is kind of nice. We'll be able to do a lambic style fruited beers this year using 1 year, 1.5 year spontaneous aged beer.
So are you at the point where you have a base beer that you work with?
Yeah. We've got a number of different tests in all these different barrels, but there's our Britannia beer that tends to come out of this footer here. So that's really a big part of our program. But then we also have a version that's more based for spontaneous, higher in protein and stuff.
Our friend Mark Bauschke says, cheers to the cool ship.
Yeah. So yeah. Cheers, Mark. Hope you're doing well.
Crew car is all about it too.
Is it spontaneous yeast in Ballard is good?
So the spontaneous program, the very first year we did it. So we've got a batch from 2 years ago. So we released Air last year, which was our first release of spontaneous beer, and it turned out really nice. We got 2 barrels of that set aside, and then we've got a good amount of last year's spontaneous that was from the cool ship, the first year of the cool ship. First year we did it like a Russian River used to do it, which is using a mash tun over to inoculate, just let it sit overnight. And then we've done another 2 batches this, and it's a 15 barrel cool ship, so it's a pretty decent size.
So our friend Mark Krukar wants to know, how are you finding the airborne yeast in Ballard? Is the spontaneous yeast in Ballard any good? Which is like, I gotta wonder, it's like, is it just like all Fremont yeast that you're getting, or I mean, what do you?
He's tasted it.
How do you answer that question?
Oh, I think it's really nice. I think when you're playing with spontaneous beers, you lose a lot of control as a brewer. So your main control are like no go decisions. So you have to make a big population of barrels and let them run. The first year, though, the first batches we did worked out incredibly well, and all 4 barrels were really, really spot on. So, I think it's just a question of not rushing that style. The beer takes time. It might take longer than you want, but it's not in your hands anymore.
I've always honestly wondered, people, like you look at like what they did landing in Tillamook, what DeGard did landing in Tillamook, and how they like supposedly tested the air everywhere they went around Oregon and ended up in Tillamook as the best source for yeast. But I always wonder how much the airborne yeast varies from Ballard to Fremont to West Seattle to the Skagit Valley. I mean, I know there's a lot of different things involved here, but I've always wondered if it maybe doesn't vary that much, and it's really more about what you're doing when you actually make the beer. Another important question we have coming up from Talia. She wants to know if you're ever going to make the 3 Crushketeers. It's hard to say. It's hard to say, especially after a Wembley and half a growler or half a crowler of another beer.
Actually, 3 Crushketeers I got an email about that the other day as well. It was a fun name. I quite like puns, right? Dad humor kind of stuff. I'm always restrained. I'm normally restrained on it from some people in the team, but so my true wants are never normally fully given. But I think that's one that I do need to write down, because that's now not the first time I've heard that in the last few weeks even. So I'll make a note. No, that wasn't 3-way. That was a different. That was a hazy IPA early on in our Crush series that used 3 hops. Now I can't remember which 3 they were off the top of my head, because it was like 2 or 3 years ago. But I can't remember 2 or 3 days ago right now.
2-3 days ago. It could have been 2 or 3 weeks ago. It all seems the same. You're working, so you don't got as much excuse as those of us who are surviving at home, where we're like going, Friday? What's a Friday? It's like, oh, this is Memorial Day weekend. What is this weekend of which you speak? It's a holiday weekend. Holiday? What is a holiday? Right. So what else do we have? Questions. I'm looking at questions right now before I get into, and of course I want to, you're my brother in puns. I mean, I am a dick for puns. I mean, my friends hate me because of my puns, or they love me because of my puns, but I'm a punny guy, Also, Talia is also asking about another beer, asking about the Pasava.
Yeah, so Pasava was a collaboration with Great Notion, right? And we That was when we brewed it at our brewery, and then a few months ago I went and brewed at their brewery. I brewed the double dunk beer, so double cookie dunk, and that was just a concept I got on the airplane because I got like obsessed with Biscoff cookies. I thought this in one of their stouts would work really well. So, and I think it did. I think it did.
So you fly Alaska Airlines as well.
Yes, yes. There's a tell
Those
there.
of you who fly Alaska, or those of you who used to fly Alaska Airlines frequently, understand what we're talking about. We're talking about the cookies that you get.
But I've been chatting with the Great Notion guys. So one thing that the pandemic's done, or whatever we want to call this, it does bring people together in unique ways. And there's a whole group of us that are constantly texting each other, like checking in with each other, seeing how you're doing. It gives you a reason to connect with people in a different way, admittedly, than what you would otherwise. But I think in some respects, it does bring you closer together with people, even though you're physically further away. So, one Andy in Great Notion is one guy that I've been speaking to quite a lot, and we've been talking about doing something else with them because they're close to coming back to their space opening. I don't know when that will be. That's like opposite us. Right. So I need to connect with them and see about brewing something with them that might be Passava for when it opens. So we'll see.
So the last thing I want to talk to you about before we wrap this thing up is the Virtual Crush project.
Yeah.
That was a unique idea, or maybe not unique, but novel, in that you allowed the public to have some input on an upcoming beer.
Yeah.
And how'd that work out?
So that gets released, I think, next Tuesday. I think.
Well, explain exactly what it is, what the concept was about.
Yeah. So again, I'm trying to think we have the same wants and needs as humans, but we can't go out of our houses and interact as humans, right? So how can we kind of facilitate this sort of discrepancy between our needs and our abilities? So one idea we came up with was today, the way that we do Thank You Thursday. Another idea was this idea, and I don't know anybody else who's done it. It was just a crazy idea. I come up with crazy ideas all the time, and I normally get shot down with them, but this one I got allowed to progress. But Virtual Crush is we reached out to people and asked them to vote on what hop profile they would want in a beer. So we got votes, hundreds of votes, and we based the hops that we're going to use based on the weight of those votes. So I think Citra, Mosaic, and Summer were the winners. I can't remember the relative percentages. I think it was like 33%. They weren't quite all third. There was Summer was like 20%, I think. And we put that in a beer, got the label designed, and then that gets released next week, so people can try what they've effectively voted on. It's kind of fun to have a level of interaction.
And that's just going into that's just the blend that's being used in the dry hop.
Yeah.
And of course, for people who don't know, in a hazy beer, in that particular style of IPA, what goes into the dry hopping is the hugest component of the hop character that you end up with. Would you agree?
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of the actual numbers. I mean, you're talking of well over 90% of the hops in a beer, in a hazy IPA, are in the dry hop.
Yeah. So basically all of that fruity, floral character that you get in an IPA, and especially in a dry hop IPA, is coming from the dry hop process. And we can go into details about what that means, but I think a lot of people probably know what that means. Anyway, it's interesting that you decided to let the public have some say in that. And the hop that they ended up choosing is one that I'm not horribly familiar with. You call it Summer, but it's New Zealand Summer, right?
Australian
Summer. Huge difference there.
If somebody's from the Southern Hemisphere, you never want to guess if they're Australian or a New Zealander. No. I've made that mistake so many times that I've learned my lesson. It's like
the other thing is you don't want to say, "Oh, your accent, you're English, aren't you?" No, don't do that. Just don't mention the accent. That's your best bet.
I've been called many things. um, but yeah, so summer's kind of nice. So when you're looking at hop profiles, hops in a rounded profile, we never go for one hop. I say never, but the majority of the time we're doing blends, and you have lead hops and you have supporting hops. So it's like actors, right? And summer is one that I wouldn't go as being a lead actor. Some of the Southern Hemisphere hops have. It's not going to sound very appetizing, but it's like a BO element. It's like so dank. It's not very actually nice.
People would say that about Mosaic as well.
Um, yeah. If with Mosaic, it's where it's picked on its harvest. So
Yeah.
if it's early harvest, it's really fruity. If it gets later, it gets really dank.
Garlic.
Yeah, and that's where you get into the BO. We it's kind of interesting when you go and do selection. You can even see it because you can see the color over time. It gets a little darker. So we tend to go always on the lighter side, which is where something like summer comes in because it gives a nice balance and supports the backbone of the fruity hops on top. So it's all about a blend, and I think this blend will actually work out really nice. So I think the people have spoken, and they spoke well on this one.
Yeah.
When's that coming out?
When can we expect that release? Soon?
I got a feeling it's next Tuesday, but don't quote me on that because the beer tells us when it's ready. But I think it's next Tuesday.
All right, we'll keep an eye out. And if you guys, if anybody out there hasn't signed up yet if you're a beer consumer and you haven't signed up to be on their mailing list, you're stupid because it's not like you get a mailing from them once every month with a bunch of useless information on it. You get 2 or 3 times a week, and it's always got information about what's coming out right now and what you need to do to get it and all sorts of good information. You guys do a really good job with that part of it.
No, thanks. We try and do once a week, and we don't want to just send something out for the sake of it. It has to be worth your time, right? I have to recognize that other people are spending their time reading this, so I don't want to just put anything in boxes because I don't appreciate that myself. So
yeah, and when you're making 1,200 different beers in 9 months, you need to make sure that people know what you're coming out with next week. It's like, oh, it's Tuesday. That means Reuben's is coming out with a new beer. No, it means they're coming out with 2. Yeah. What? So
actually, and a pun. I got a pun through. So, being a Smiths fan, this charming man, I thought it's a perfect time to release this charming can.
Oh, no.
Yes.
And that's on Tuesday as well.
Okay.
2 questions.
2 questions for you.
You both ran surveys. Were the results surprising or expected?
Somebody asked. We both ran surveys at the Washington Beer Blog and Reuben's Brews. Surveys about reopening. Surveys we surveyed the public about reopening. Was there anything that you guys found surprising about the results?
Well, I spoke with Bart Watson at the BA, and he was saying that the results are pretty consistent among all of these surveys because he must see it at a national level and get a few visibility to a few of them. To me, it was kind of interesting that more people wanted us to keep the to-go store online than have used it online. So that implies that people want to use it in the future. And if you think about it, that didn't exist. That a to-go store online did not exist on March 16th. So I think that's kind of an interesting takeaway that level of desire was more than we thought. And then the other thing is I didn't go in with preconceived notions. That was the point of doing it, right? That we wanted to see feedback. But I find it interesting that the number one concern of people is other people's actions. And I don't know how us as a brewery there's an element of policing that, right? And most of the craft beer community will be great at that, but there will be the odd person maybe that isn't. And it's going to put a lot of stress on our team. And I need to think about how we manage that internally.
Yeah.
What about you?
I think for me on ours, I was expecting one of the questions that I asked. Our surveys were a little bit different. Yours seemed to be more specifically drawn towards your audience, your fans, your mailing list. Mine was broader. We both surveyed in the end. We both surveyed about the exact same number of people. I think in the end, I had, when I didn't shut it down, but when I finally stopped counting or paying attention, it was at about 1,200 people. I think you were probably about the same.
Yep.
And what I think was surprising was the number of people who were undecided. When I asked them a question like, "Are you going to go? Are you going to go back to the brewery tap rooms the way you did before?" And they're like, "I don't know. I'm going to wait and see." And it's like that was, I expected a lot more people to say, "Yes, I can't wait to go back to the brewery tap room. I'm going to go as frequently as I used to go." And a lot of people, one of the questions I asked was, are you going to go? You're going to go back to the tap room. Are you going to go back to brewery tap rooms as frequently as you did before, less than you did before, the same as you did before, or undecided? And a larger percentage than I expected said they were undecided and they were going to wait and see how things go. And then also I had a broader thing than you had on yours, which was a way for people to select what matters most to them out of a large array of things. But it did end up going back to like the same thing that you say. I didn't ask specifically, are you worried about other people's behavior? But when I look at my results, I can see that no, the things that people are worried about are other people's behavior. So what you guys are doing in Ballard, I know that I've spoken with Laura at Stoop, and she's told me that you guys are kind of all talking to each other about how you're going to manage this. Your idea that you're going to have kind of a set, when you go to Ballard and you go to the tap rooms, this is what you can expect. And I think that's the article that I published the other day was about expectations. And I think that's what everybody wants to know. I mean, tell me what the expectations are going to be so I know what to expect when I go to Ballard and go bouncing around from tap room to tap room, if that's what I choose to do. Tell me. Yep. So that's even possible. I'm not going to, so I don't go to one brewery tap room and everybody's wearing masks and everybody's maintaining distance. And I go half a block down the street and a bunch of people are high-fiving bros, in the parking lot and hugging each other and, whatever. It's like people want to know exactly what to expect because these are scary times. And this COVID thing is whatever you think about it, it is a scary freaking disease. And everybody's worried about it. So, everything we can do to protect each other, I know that Burwood Brewing over in Walla Walla, which is now cleared to open, and they did open. Their story was actually kind of endearing about their first weekend being open. Is that their distanced tap room, their beer garden outside, half as many tables, everything's socially distanced. The only real difference between normal was it was a lot louder because people were yelling at each other from table to table.
Oh, that's
and it was like I was a little bit worried being over there in Walla Walla that things might be a little bit different than that. But that's a great story. People are understanding that we need to do these things, and I don't want to turn this into a whole conversation about all of that. But I think from a brewery perspective, it must be quite a daunting task for you guys to think about.
Yeah, for us, June 1 is the first date theoretically that we might be able to open from, but we don't even know for sure yet. But speaking with our team, there's some stuff that we don't even have. Like we have to reconfigure all the tables. We used to have these nice big communal tables, which we're not going to be able to use in the short term. So we need to get some other tables, and they're on order, and they're not here yet. So even if it's June 1 is the date that we practically can, we might not open on that day because right. We need to make sure we have everything ready internally to keep people safe and keep our team safe because we're not going to violate anything on that. We haven't, this virus hasn't been beaten, right? It's just been suppressed, and it can come back and haunt us, and it may well do. I see there was a question about, oh my God, no hair. Mark Kruger. So I can say yes, no hair.
Well, yeah. Is that your version of COVID hair?
Yes. That's mine. My buzz cut. Yeah, nice. It's like the opposite of mine.
Okay, actually, when I do that, I've kind of got this Boris Johnson hair.
Oh yes.
One question that's not so serious.
One question that's not so serious.
And fun. What Washington brewery would you love to collaborate with that you haven't yet?
Ooh, what Washington brewery would you love to collaborate with that you have not collaborated with yet?
That's a really good question. Um,
Don't worry about like putting people off. Like, oh, he didn't mention my brewery. Just say the first one that comes off the top of your head.
the first one I was thinking about is Steve at Cloudburst, because we haven't collaborated. We talked about it before it even opened,
That's
and we
pretty
never
stupid.
got around to it.
That's actually really stupid. You guys need to collaborate.
It'd be fun. We've been emailing the last couple of days, but not about collaboration. But maybe one day. Maybe one day.
We have some
But
questions.
Yeah, you guys both. Among the different types of beers you both make, you guys both kind of accelerate at or exceed expectations with the hazy IPA. So some version of a hazy IPA between you and Steve would be pretty fantastic. But then again, you guys would probably get together and end up making a Helles Bock.
Yeah.
Your the people on the stream have suggested Old Stove. Everybody's in Mirage.
People on the stream have suggested Old Stove, Everybody's Brewing, and Mirage.
Yeah, all great breweries. We have so many great breweries in this state. We're very fortunate.
That is true. Yeah. That's a lot of blah, 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 and a lot of blowing sunshine up everybody's skirt about what great breweries they are, but they're not as great as yours, right? No, that's not true. I know you're not like that. I know you're not like that, Adam. And the reason why there's two reasons. I always tell people say like, God, can you believe that Reuben's Brews has won as many medals as they have over the years? And I'm like, well, yeah. And it's like, and some people say it's because they submit for medals in every competition. And I say, yeah. And they win medals in every competition. And you guys, you and me talked about this way back 5-6 years ago. And you said that one of the main reasons why you believe that it's important to submit beers for competitions is feedback.
Yeah. Yeah, I still think that.
In case people haven't paid attention, that's worked out pretty well for you.
It's independent validation or criticism on your beer, right? And by people who know what they're talking about. I like doing judging myself. I learn more from a day judging than I do a month at the brewery, because it's really in the nuances. You might try 15 different Helleses, and after that, you're going to really understand where you want to be on the scale. So you can take that go back to the brewery and just try and assess yours against that scale. Gives you a broader sense of reality. You know, in everything that you do, it's not what you're doing; it's the context that you're in. And if you can go do a competition and actually go and judge, you can see the broader context of beers as a whole.
In terms of like submitting beer to competitions, it's not free. So as a judge, on the other side, me as a judge, I look at it and I feel like I need to do a really, really spectacular. I realize the importance of my job when I'm judging, because you've paid money in most cases for the most important. You've paid money to get your beer there and have your beer judged by me or by a panel. So we take it seriously, and you guys are, you've used it well. A lot of breweries that I've known that have opened in, let's just say, the same era that you opened in, seem to have a different kind of attitude, where it's just like, we make what we like, and I make what I want, and I'm never going to make an IPA, and and those are some of the breweries that haven't survived and haven't thrived as well as you have.
Competition is hard, right? So it's like playing poker. You could put in a pocket aces and you'll still lose a decent amount of the time, right?
Yeah.
So you could put in what you think is an absolutely perfect beer, and there's lots of specifics around where it is in the lineup of people judging their beers. Whether that bottle wasn't filled the best way or whatever. And honestly, the vast majority of competitions, you lose, you fail, right? And it's painful, like, and they're your babies that you'll get these awful feedback on, right? And you think it's great. You go and try the version that you've got in your cooler, and it's great, and it doesn't make sense how this discrepancy happens. So I can understand why some people just don't want to get involved in that, because it is very painful. People telling you that your babies are crap is not fun.
Yeah, but I always say that one of the things with our judging, when I've been on judging panels, it's like we come up with it's really kind of sad, because we come up with a judgment in the end, and we all know that if we came back and judged the exact same beers tomorrow, the results might be different.
Well, that's the quality of the beers you're judging, right? It means that we're all at this level, not like in an obvious line, which is something. It's a good thing about Washington beer.
Yeah, we've managed to get all the ships to rise, all the boats to rise, bring everybody else up with us, so we don't have a bunch of crappy beer out there. We have 400 breweries, which is 390 beautiful breweries and 10 ugly ones, and that's an okay ratio to be at. I don't want to go on record saying which one are the 10 ugly ones, but
oh, no.
And I don't know if they are actually ugly. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So anyway, we should wrap this up, because we're at like 52 minutes now, and it's just supposed to be 30 minutes. So we just
I was wondering.
You and me, Adam, when we get together, we always seem to have something to talk about.
There's a lot to talk about, right? And it's been a while.
It has. You used to have hair.
Yes.
That's how long it's been.
It's all been pulled out.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Adam. And I'm going to check one. Oh, I'm looking at one last to see if anybody's got any good questions. We're good. Okay. So we're signing off for this week. And thank you very much for joining us, everybody. And thank you very much for joining us, Adam. And cheers, everybody. And hang in there. Stay safe. And we'll all get through this together. Cheers.
Cheers, everybody.
All right.